Welcome to the Daniel Batal channel, the one channel that has more hair per square inch than any other YouTube channel on the platform. I think that's true. Is that true, Megan?
I can only assume so.
I think I made that up. So listen, that was funny. We did a live stream a week or so ago, and everybody was really into it, talking about just getting into the edit page and doing some of the basics. And I wanted to make sure we did it again soon so that we could talk about some of the things that really do allow us to become better editors, like strengthen our core skills, our fundamentals. And one of the things that I haven't really talked about is just how you can edit footage and how to put things together, L cuts, J cuts, what to think about, where to cut spaces, how to treat your timeline when you bring footage in. Thought this would be a great chance to do that. How do we sound out there? Do we sound okay? Give us a thumbs up if everything looks good, sounds good, and we'll do our thing here. I'm excited for today. So listen, I want to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I want to film something real time. Instead of bringing in something and going, here's my footage, you guys give me something that we should talk about. Like, I want you guys to build a script for me. I'll read it, film it really quickly live, and we'll put it right inside of DaVinci Resolve, and then we'll edit it. And I'll show you some of the things that I go through when I go to film things, because I trip over words, I make mistakes. I'm always trying to figure out how to edit for flow. And I think this will be a great sort of experiment. See if we can pull it off. It'll put me to the test. But come up with an idea. What should we talk about today? Throw out an idea for a concept of what you guys want to talk about. It can be anything. I don't really care. Let's quickly build a script, maybe a paragraph or so that I'll read. I'll just read it. We'll film it and we'll edit it together, and you'll see sort of how I approach things. So come up with an idea. Let's get a concept. Just yell anything out that you think might be fun to talk about. Can be anything. Free lesson. Yes. And absolutely. Egg Sheerans. That's a great name. Egg Sheerans. That sounds like an Irish breakfast. Eat at a steakhouse like Keen's. Yeah, man. You never have to suggest that I go to a steakhouse. I love steak. When you do a cut, should the audio precede the video cut? We're going to talk about that, my friend. Home rapid repair. I'm going to definitely show you my process here. So listen, let's build something. Give me a sentence. Anyone, just throw out a sentence. I'll take one of these. Like, there's one right there. How you hang your guitars. I like this. This is going to be the subject. The subject is going to be how I hang my guitars. Megan, put that into our create a script. It'll be how I hang my guitars. And then give me a sentence. Just give me a sentence. So how I hang my guitars, I'll let you guys decide how I do that. Give me a sentence, something that I can read, and I'll read it right in here. We'll edit it live. I'm going to keep my eyes on the chat. And this is going to be nice and easy. Are you going to use the speed editor? David Jones asked. Not today. What he's referring to is this piece of machinery. And I will do some videos on some of the hardware that I own. The problem is that most editors using Resolve don't have the speed editor. More people are using the free version than have the studio version and also have like the speed editor. So I won't be doing that today, but I will do some videos on that, because not only do I like using the speed editor in the cut page, I actually like using this one too. This is Blackmagic Designs editor keyboard, which is sort of like the speed editor and keyboard all in one. So I have a bunch of their hardware tools that I really love using, but they're very specific. They can get kind of expensive. They're several $100s and range up from there. I'll do some stuff on just the BMD hardware in the future. I promise I'll do some dedicated content. So listen, let's build this out. So I gotta go. While singing, my guitars are hung melodically. My guitars are hung melodically, says Doug Houston.
I like
Megan,
that.
That is our first line. How to hang your guitars. The first line of this script is going to say, my guitars are hung melodically. Feel free to jump onto that if you want to. Give me another line. Give me another line. Just throw out lines, people. We're going to build the script on the go. I'll add them in if you don't. Oh, wait a minute. Can you say DaVinci Resolve for noobs like in your shorts, please? All right, I guess so. But we have to make it match the hanging guitars. So it has to be how to hang guitars for noobs. That's going to be the title. Is that what it is? How to hang your guitars for noobs is going to be the opening line. Let's just put that in there as well. They're going to be hung melodically. Well, I'm reading some of the comments. I watched your DaVinci Resolve lag fix issue. It helped me a lot, so thank you. Man, I'm so happy to hear that, Nature. There's so many different things you can do to try to improve performance. I've got a bunch of lag tip videos out there. There's not just one. There's using proxies. There's setting the playback resolutions. A lot of those things I think are really important to try to get the software to work well on different systems, because we don't all have $10,000 editing systems that they're using to test the software on when they build the new versions. Really, really tricky. Love this channel, learning and fun. Oh man, I appreciate that. Tricky Brickies says, the key is not to drop them. All right, Megan, that goes in there. The key is not to drop them. That's an important point when hanging guitars. The key is not to port. Just click on those shorts and let them loop. I have no problem with that. There's a question here from Egg Sheerans. Do you prefer working on C-Log or S-Log? If neither, what color space is your favorite working on? For most of the stuff I do, it's a great question. I tend to make videos for YouTube, so I don't need to shoot a lot of log footage. I do when I do things like music videos. You guys have seen me maybe once a year, every couple of years, I'll make like a music video, and I'll use higher settings. But most of the time, I'm not shooting in log footage. I'm usually just shooting right to, something simple, a basic, basic MP4 capture with a Rec 709 color space. And in the color spaces, what you're talking about there, I've got some great live streams. We had Darren Mofston, who's a professional colorist, on the channel twice in live streams where he's really talked about developing larger color spaces. Because most of my stuff looks like this, I'm using decent cameras, and what the shot looks like is usually okay. I don't do extreme color grading. We'll actually do some of that today. We'll shoot this, whatever we're going to do, and I'll do some quick color grading. I don't go out of my way to make crazy color spaces for YouTube videos. We don't really need it, but when it's heavier stuff, I do. Make a video about nodes. I've made plenty. Hello from Pensacola. Wish I was better with nodes. Me too. Any videos on that? I've got tons of videos on nodes.
I'm hopping in to say
Yes.
I love Pensacola. It's beautiful there.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I think that should go into the script, Megan. The Pensacola, let's make that the nation's capital for guitar hanging. I think that belongs in the script. We'll wing this one. I just want to say, you have pulled my far out of the fire. Well, my feet out of the fire. My fat out of the fire. Waiting this. I just want to say that you have pulled my fat out of the fire many times in the past. Love this channel. Okay, I'm going to take that as a compliment. I've never heard that expression. I've seen feet to the fire, but fat out of the fire. That's great, man. I appreciate that. Anything I put out here, the goal is always to try to give you guys useful information that hopefully improves your editing experience. And when you run into stumbling blocks, hopefully there's videos on my channel that can help you quickly overcome some of those basic stumbling blocks. Your node video saved my video. That's perfect. Love hearing it. Daniel's voice, coffee, and SEC football for today, says Scott Merrill. What a start to the day. Yeah, that's quite the start. Where's my pal Eric Waitman item? Eric Waite would be bringing whiskey right now. I've got coffee. I'm running with coffee. All right, so let's go. I'm going to start working out the script really quickly. Let's see. Pensacola, Nation Guitars. Make sure you don't drop them. And I'm going to add a couple of things in here. I'm going to add some of my own line. Let's see. Here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to share this over here. Let me put this over here. I'm going to share this screen. Will this work? Yeah, I think I can do that. All right, let me go like this, and let me see if I can cut over. There we go. Here's my script. All right, paste here. I don't need this. That can go. This is my script so far. Great live script. How to hang your guitars for noobs. I love that. That's a good topic. My guitars are hung melodically. That's a good point. That's something I think we should talk about. The key thing is not to drop them. Yeah, that's important. And we'll talk about Pensacola, which is the nation's capital for guitar hanging. I think that's an important point too. Anything else you guys want to add into the script? You want me to wing it? I'm going to film this live. You're going to put me on the spot. Oh, I know it's a good trick. Is it never put two guitars on one hook? On one hook. That's probably important, right? Because you don't want to do that, because then one hook, one guitar. I think that's a safe rule to go with. Anything else that I need to be paying attention to here, Megan? Any ideas? Anybody in the chat got another line I should add to this?
I popped one in there for you.
What did you put?
You hang guitars from the bass up.
From the bass up? Okay. It sounds a little sexual. I feel like we're gonna get a community guideline strike. Oh, you hang guitars. Oh, from the bass, BASS. Yeah, see, I read that the wrong way. See, it's my dirty mind. It's my Doritos. All right, you hang guitars from the bass up, and I think the most important thing is the real important lesson here is you can never have too many guitars. You can never have too many guitars. Have too many guitars. All right, I think that's we got something to work with here, right? There's some points, right? Do we like this? I think that's pretty good. I think that's something to work with. This is going to be my script. Let me see. Let me shift this over. So this is my script. I'm going to run with this. We're going to talk about how to hang guitars for noobs. Make sure that your guitars are hung melodically. The key thing is not to drop them. Pensacola, which is the nation's capital for guitar hanging. Never put two guitars in one hook. Always make sure you're hanging your guitars from the bass up. See, because that's a bass. That's a guitar joke. And you can never have too many guitars. All right, this is the script. All right, let's see. Let me see what I have here. I'm going to open up good old Bandicam, which is usually good for me. Usually treats me well. And I will record this on the fly. We will see if I can get this to record. And then we'll just edit it. We'll edit it live. You know, it is what it is. Let me switch over here. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Let me get my face. Let me go over here. Now, this is the part where I have to look at the camera. This is what I do every time I'm building shorts. I have like ideas of what I need to talk about, but I never really follow a script. I usually just look at the camera and sort of know what I'm doing when I'm talking. And a lot of my shorts, my face isn't even in them. My face is usually in the longer form ones. And in the shorts, I'm usually showing mostly DaVinci Resolve. So today I'm going to read this script that's in front of me. And let's see if we can piece it together and cut it like a professional would cut it and think about what to pay attention to. There's going to be mistakes. Don't hate me. So here we go. Let's get this. Let's serious face, Megan. We're making videos here. Important videos for YouTube.
I am so serious.
Okay. Here we go. That is now capturing over there. Okay. Look at the camera. First thing is sorry. See, already tripped on my tongue. How to hang guitars for noobs. All right. That's our opening line. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. That's the first line. Yeah. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop a guitar. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that one string. That was a guitarist joke for guitarists out there. These are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. What else do we have? And one thing I learned while I was studying down in Pensacola is never put two guitars on one hook. So, and as my girlfriend and channel manager once reminded me, always hang guitars from the bass up. Okay. And the last we have is, and what I try to remind everyone is, I just made noise. And what I try to remind everyone is, you can never have too many guitars. Okay, that's filmed. We got it. That's our whole piece of footage that we're going to be using here in today's edit. Hey, if I can make something from this, you know I'm a true professional. That's my line. So let me do this. Let me find this video footage that we just filmed, and I'm going to bring it over into DaVinci Resolve. Let's make a cut here. Let's go. Okay. So I just brought this in. This is what I just filmed. Let me bring it down, and let's make sure we can hear it. Oh, get right in there. Don't go too far. All right. Full screen. There we go. All the way over. Let's take a listen. Let's see if we can hear it. Okay. Showing over there. Okay. Look at the camera. First thing is sorry. See, already. All right. Can everybody hear that? Okay. Is the volume okay? Can you hear what's going on? Because I definitely want to make sure you guys can hear it. I can turn it up a little bit. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that one string. That sound all right? You can hear it good? Yes. Yes. Everybody sees it. All right. So we've got it in Resolve. Look at the shocked face I have on right now. Typically for me, when I begin an edit, this is exactly what I have. It's usually one continuous piece of some kind of footage, right? It just kind of goes, and I've got mistakes. I've got lines I need to remove. And what I'm usually looking at, let me make sure I got this right. Hold on a second. Let me go over this side. Boom. Is this down here? I've got all these sections where I'm looking at the audio. The thing that I always do first is I cut to the audio. I always start with my audio. And I don't know if everybody else cuts like that, but when I make videos, the most important thing to me is to make sure that the way I'm talking to people and the way the messaging comes across is clear. It makes sense. It's not choppy. It's got flow. It's got rhythm. So the very first thing I start looking at is the audio itself, and I start trying to cut all based on the audio. I don't even care what's going on with the video, and I just let that be cut along the way. So if it's for my personal preference, the first thing I'm going to do is find the opening lines, right? So I'll usually kind of stretch in, and there's different ways you can cut. If you guys know this, when you first open up DaVinci Resolve, it's in what we call selection mode. Oh, wait, there he is. Eric White Whiskey Studio. $10 super chat. Whiskey and Waffles, the breakfast of champions. I was just talking about you, pal. That's awesome. Good to see you. Thanks for the super chat, Eric. I appreciate that. Oh, she's telling me I got Velcro beard. My hair, Megan's like, hey, you got your hair stuck to your beard. That happens a lot when you have this much hair going on. So one of the things I want to talk about here is, right, so when we're looking here, there's different ways to cut. This is selection mode. And if you're in selection mode, you can sit and you can cut through footage. I think a lot of people know that if you just move your playhead to a certain section, I'm going to mute this for a minute. You can just move your playhead anywhere in your footage, and wherever it is, seeing as it's right here, if you just hit Control+B on your keyboard, for Mac users, I believe that is Command+B, it's going to cut right at that point. Let me just move the playhead over. And if you see, it put a cut right there, just a quick keyboard shortcut. Some people like to change that in the keyboard customizations. You can change whatever keyboard shortcut actually makes the cut. So if you don't like Control or Command+B and you just want to get it down to one key, you can go up and you can change that. There's actually a spot. If you go up to, let me go up. Whoop, hang on a second. Let me get this. I'll get there yet. If I go up to clicking on DaVinci Resolve, you'll see there's a section here that says keyboard customization. And if you click on that, it actually gives you an entire pop-up window right here where you can start, changing all of these keyboard customizations. It gives you you can use a search bar to go through and say, I don't like what the keyboard shortcut is for cutting. I want to make it something different. So you can do all of that here if you want something different. But that's a very standard way that people learn their first sort of shortcut to cut is selection mode, Control or Command+B. Now, you don't have to do that. There is also a lot of people see this one here, this blade mode right there. That's two over from the selection mode. That one's a cool one too. If you select blade mode, what happens there, let me see if it'll show you. If you put your playhead on your footage, you can't really see it. It'll create a line and your cursor turns into a little razor blade. And then all you have to do, if I shrink this down, is just move along, find the spaces, and anywhere you click on your footage, if you're in blade mode, it just starts layering in cuts. I'm just keeping it over the footage. You can see that little razor blade icon. And wherever I click, it's just going to start dropping cuts. Some people think that that's a better way, just a different way to do it. If you know exactly what you're cutting and why you're cutting it, that can be a quick way to cut from the edit page too. It's not always my favorite way to do things, only because I tend to like to hear what's being said. Sometimes I'm looking at the waveform, but I can't really tell which line I'm keeping, which one I muffed. So I kind of scrub through with the audio on. And really my favorite way to cut is actually using trim edit mode, which is this second option right over to the right of selection mode. And this one works a little bit different. And I'll show you why I like using this mode. I think it's really quick. I think it allows me to cut. You can still use Control or Command-B to place a cut at the playhead, but then you can do something different with the way you start slipping the footage. And if you haven't learned how to slip footage, it can be really, really helpful and fast. So let me give you a quick example. I'm looking at this. Let's turn the mute off. I'm going to try to be able to play, let you hear me talk, and try not to talk over myself too much. So I'm going to use spacebar to get this footage to start and stop playing. I use that a lot. That is now capturing over there. Okay, look at the camera. First thing, sorry. So I'll immediately try to find my first line. How to hang guitars for noobs. Okay, that's my line. All right, so I just went, now that I found it, I go, that's my line. And I'm looking at the audio. I'm saying this part here is how to hang guitars, and there's for noobs right after it. So the minute I locate that, what I'm going to try to do is isolate that as my first clip and go, that's clip one. So the way I would usually do that is I would make sure that I have a little, like I'm using the zoom right here on the timeline. That little slider allows me to zoom in and out of the timeline if I need to, so I can get zoomed in more, and I can say, okay, I know that this was how to hang guitars for noobs. I just heard it, and I sort of equate the waveform with the words I'm hearing. I spoke, had a pause for noobs, that was it. I know what's where. So I'm gonna end up putting the playhead here, and I'm gonna cut right after I said noobs, basically right where the playhead is, by just hitting Control B. Now you might ask yourself, but Daniel, you have all this other footage before it. You had that's the part you want to keep, but what about all of this? You're gonna cut it and then you're gonna delete it. The reason I like using the trim edit mode is all I have to do is place my cursor at the beginning, right halfway. You can't really see the change too much, but my cursor is just basically halfway up the video clip itself, and it changes the cursor into a single bracket, and all I have to do is left click and hold, and if I pull, I'm going to mute this for a second, and if I pull in, I can pull right or slip right to that point. Do you see what I just did there? So now I have just managed to just grab that end and I pulled, and it slid everything over to that point. So now I know right at the beginning I've got that isolated. I didn't have to cut, I didn't have to delete, I just click, held, pull, and it allowed me to slip that footage right to that spot. So I now have the first line, how to hang guitars for noobs. That's the beginning, right? So that's the first cut we needed. So now it's a matter of where's my next line? And sometimes that can be a bit of a pain in the butt to find. This is where I use the scrub feature. If you left click and hold on your playhead and you have audio scrubbing on, you'll kind of hear that garbled, kind of fast scrubbing of the audio. And if you get used to your own sort of style of editing, you'll start recognizing what you should be paying attention to, which lines. I'll stop for microseconds to go, is that a line I need to keep? And immediately, just by listening, go, no, that was a junk line, throw it. And I'll just try to find the next proper line. And so when I do that, it's actually pretty simple. Like where I have the playhead here, you'll hear me scrub through. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars always hung melodically. That was the line I wanted. So I'm looking at that going, okay, there was a little junk right there, right at the very, I got to get rid of. But this section, let me see if I get a better zoom than that. This section right here, when it comes to hanging guitars, I think they should be hung melodically. Doug Hewson's great line. That line, I'm looking at the waveform. The line starts here and it ends right about at that playhead. Now, you've noticed with the first one, I made a cut because I had to make a cut at some point. After this, I'm not really making cuts quite yet. I'm still sticking with the trim edit mode, and I'm just gonna go down and I'm gonna left click. I'm gonna left click right here, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the first piece of footage, and I'm gonna drag to that line really quickly. Now I'm just gonna grab, drag, and it slides that whole footage. I'm slipping, and I'm gonna slip over to that point where I go, okay, I can now see the audio waveform is right about at that point. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point. Don't get freaked out like I gotta have the perfect cut, the perfect timing. You can go back in and tweak them. I just try to get them close. If I can get them reasonably close and not have to do a lot more work afterwards, then I'm pretty happy. But I want to get it to sound like the flow is working. So I'll quickly listen to that cut point, start the playhead a little bit before it, and I'll play through just to see, like, right at that cut point, does this work? Does that make sense? And I'll listen to the change for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that worked for me. So I go, okay, that's where it is. Now I know that was my line. It ends right about here. I'm looking at the waveform. I cut everything to the waveform. I don't even care about the video. I care about what I'm hearing. So I'm gonna go right to the end of that line right there, and I'm gonna place my next cut. So I'll just move the playhead forward, make sure I get past the line so I'm done talking, hit Control or Command B, and now I've made that next cut. Now it feels like I'm going slow, but in real time, I do this very quickly. It just bump, 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 and I'm rifling through the footage to get this together. So you can see what I'm doing, right? Like if I get to the next spot, I'm thinking this might be the next line. I've got a nice continuous amount of waveform that looks like I spoke without being interrupted. So I'm keeping an eye out for lines, for full waveform lines. And I'll bring the playhead there and go, was that one? Let me play. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop a guitar. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that one string. Okay, so that's my line. So I'm just gonna left click at the beginning using slip mode here, trim edit, and I'm gonna pull, let me see if I can get in there. I'm going to pull that so those are now close. I'm trying to get rid of all those spaces. Just condensing the keeper lines together. Get those keeper lines together. Bang, bang, bang. Fast cut, trim, trim edit, slip it together. That's all we're trying to do. Question from Jar saying, can you use the same feature to drag it back, increase if you drag too far? Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. So if one of the things you want to pay attention to is that when you're using what we call an NLE, a non-linear editing system, which is exactly what it is, it's non-destructive. You are never destroying the original footage. And in fact, every single cut you make in this longer piece of footage, each of those cuts contains all the information contained in the original footage. That messes with people's minds sometimes. They're like, what do you mean? I don't understand what you mean. You cut it. That means like when you cut a piece of pie, you have one piece of pie. No, imagine that a cut is just a moment in time. If I go down here, if you look right over here, let me go. Each of these cuts here, the first two cuts I made, they each contain all of the information from the entire video clip that we filmed. All of it. It's all there. So if I were to grab, let's say, the beginning one, the very first cut we made, if I were to grab this end in trim edit mode, left click, hold, and pull it out to the right, you'll see that all the information after it, the entire video clip, is still there. Let me show you. So if I'm in trim edit mode and I grab at the very end, I'm right down here in the lower left grabbing, and I pull to the right, you can see that whole first clip still has all of this information in it. Every time you make a cut, you're not cutting out from the other piece. You're just assembling in an NLE, non-destructive, non-linear editing. So you can always go in and you can extend, you can go back. You're not losing any other information. You're actually sort of cutting those things up into smaller sections, but all the information is always there in every single cut. So keep that in mind. You can always trim, you can go a little wider, you can bring it a little closer. So these fast cuts, right? Non-destructive cut, that's exactly right, Eric. It's non-destructive editing in a non-linear editing system, NLE, meaning, you know, back in the day when they would cut film at, when they were making movies, they literally cut film, and you have a piece of film. They used to say like, yeah, your scene ended up on the cutting room floor. Like, it's no longer part of the reel. This is just sort of like a snapshot that we're putting all these little snapshots of moments in time from this overall footage. We're never destroying it. It's always there. Skag N Productions LLC, thank you for the $5 super chat. Your content is always helpful. Noobs is my go-to for editing questions. Fantastic. I really appreciate that, my friend. That means a lot to me. But let's keep going. I'm going to keep going right here so that you guys can see exactly what's going on. So I'm going to undo, let me cut back over. I'm going to undo that little pull that I just did here. All right. So now we're back. I'm going to go, we were at that next line. I'm going to move faster to show you kind of the pace I would normally get through this quick clip. All right. So I'm going to just go quick cut. I'm going to find the next line. I learned from Pensacola, the nation's cap. I'm going to quickly pull to the next line. Quickly check the cut. These are all lessons that okay. I'm going to move right past that one to the end of the line. I'm going to make another cut at the end of that line, and I'm going to find the next line. The thing I learned while I was studying down in Pensacola, there it is. That's the beginning of that line. I'm going to get past that. I'm going to cut at the end. I'm going to try to find my next line. My girlfriend, and as my girlfriend in channel, now here's a perfect example of where I got the line wrong. Let me see if I can stretch this out. I made a mistake at the beginning, right? So I went, and as my girlfriend, and this is one of those things you learn as you've been talking to the camera. If you kind of fumble a word or you don't feel comfortable about it, you start learning how to do the exact same line again. Like if I say to you, and as my girlfriend, how do I want to say this? I will just remember where I was at, where my hands were kind of at, how I was looking at the camera, and I'll try to replicate that line. So if I screw it up, I can say, if I screw it up, and I'll just try to remember what I just did and quickly do it again, but try to get the words right. And then when I'm in the edit, I'm trying to find the right one. Which one did I not screw up? Which one did I say better? Sometimes I'll say an entire line and I'll just have one word I didn't like, or I thought I could have phrased it better. I'll just stop and immediately retake that line as I'm on the fly, so that I know as I'm cutting, I should have beginning to end, and I'm just finding the right takes of each line to put together. So that was the one I just saw right there. I could see right in here, that's where I started saying the first line. I screwed it up and I actually got it right there. So that's where I'm going to pull to. I'm staying in trim edit mode. I'm going to click on the beginning of the footage and I'm going to pull it. I'm just left clicking and moving my mouse to the right, which pulls the footage to the left with the noise going on. So now I have that cut. I'm going to go to the end. I'm going to quickly listen to what happens next. Always hang guitars from the bass up. Okay, always hang them from the bass up. Next line. And the last we have is, and what I try to remind everyone is, I just made noise. Okay, that's not the line. The line is right about over here where the playhead is under my face. So I'm going to pull all the way to the next line. And what I try to remind everyone is, you can never have too many guitars. And that's the end. So now I'm going to say, I'm at the very end. Let me get my face out of here for a second. Hold on 1 minute. Let me see if I can do this. Let me cut over, get my face out. So now I've got this extra stuff where I was just talking to you guys. That's filmed. So I'm going to pull all that end part out. I don't need that. And that, in a nutshell, is my edit. I have now taken everything we filmed and I have rough cut it. And if you look right here, remember how we were using, where's my dot? Hold on. Oh, it's on blue now. Cool. Let me go back to red. If you look right here, I have the slider, but there is this one marker here. That little magnifying glass, the first one, if you click that, it will give you everything in your project on screen at the same time. Doesn't matter if your project is 45 minutes long or 45 seconds long. If you click right here, it's going to put all of that stuff on screen. Boom. So now every one of my cuts is on screen. I can see every single one of them. I can still zoom in and I can, depending on where my playhead is, I can still zoom in and get tighter. But the very quick shot right here, whenever I want to go back, full extent zoom is going to give me everything in my project. I actually really like this feature. Have you ever done this? Like you finished your edit and you have maybe something hanging out a minute or two, like a piece of something that was at the very end of your project. You didn't even realize it was there. A lot of times, if you hit that full extent to see the entire project, you can spot, let me give you an example here. I'm going to do a cut. Let me get my face out of here real quick. I'm going to do a cut at the end, right? I'm going to shrink this down. Let's say I accidentally had, no, it's not going to be slipping. And I accidentally had a piece of footage way over here somewhere, right? Way out in the end, I've got this one straggler piece that I had forgotten about. If I click right here, it's always going to give me that full timeline zoom, and that's going to let me see everything in my project so I can spot those and go, wait a minute, here's full timeline. I go, what? I can see it. There's that one hanging way out to the right. I've got a straggler. You got a straggler over there. It's really good for that. Let me know exactly where the beginning and end of the project is. So I don't need that one. Let me get rid of this. Let's go back to our original cuts. And that's the whole project. Now, when I get to here, this is where I'm going to go back and I'm going to fine tune either standard cuts, J cuts, or L cuts. You guys know what J cuts and L cuts are? If you know what J cuts and L cuts are, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down or a yes or a no, whatever, positive, negative. J and L cuts are something I use in every edit, and they're really important. I think it's a really great way to get a better flow, especially when you're editing videos for social media like YouTube. Quick comment here, watching a few minutes behind, talking about shortcuts. Quick point about the cutting. It's Command plus B is that way because Command is the effect. Because B is the blade. Yeah, right. You can change that as well. B does open up the blade. But again, you can always customize those shortcuts. So I'm getting on not J, nope, cool, perfect. All right, let's talk about this. I'm going to start by just bringing us to this first cut. You guys watch me make each of these cuts, and every one of these cuts is what we would call a standard cut. I got to a point in the footage. I want to go, that's where I'm going to stop, and it cut the video and the audio equal lengths, right? If you look at every one of those cuts, the video and the audio is the exact same length. So the first thing I do when I start going to the next step of this editing process is I forget about the video. I edit. I now get my flow down with the audio, and an easy way to do that, just to get it out of sight, I'm going to take the height of the video and shrink it down to nothing. Anybody wondering how you do that? Right up here, you can click on this, right? The timeline controls and track height. You can do it there. You can also actually put your mouse cursor on the line in between each track and raise them and lower them. But I'm going to get video right out of the way so that what we're really looking at, and I'm going to stretch out the audio, is audio. Everything we do here is going to be just paying attention to the audio. I don't care what happens with the video cuts now. So let's listen for flow. How to hang guitars for noobs. Now, I'm listening to how long does it take for me to start the next line. Am I hearing breaths? Are there things in there in the background noise that might be distracting in some way? So I start looking at these cuts. I'm going to scrutinize these cuts very closely. One of the things I typically do is I try to get my cut to start right at the beginning of the audio track. So right here is my next clip, and that's where I start speaking. Right now, I've got this dead space here from the beginning of the cut to where I start talking. There's a bit of dead space. So I'm going to actually trim that over and go, let me get rid of the dead space. I don't mind a little space after I say a line, but the minute I start the next line, I want that to be right on that line. So there's not like an awkward, even if it's a millisecond, I don't want a weird pause of it like there's Daniel waiting to say his next line, get right to the next line. So when you're doing these kind of cuts, my preference is you can do the same thing, stay in trim edit mode. And even though everything's all cut, it's all cut, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor right on this clip. See how the green is sort of facing? I don't know if you can see it. There's a very light green. I think you can see. Can you see how this clip is now got like a little light green on the clip? It's just to the left side. It's like a neon green. That lets me know which side my cursor is affecting. I want to grab the beginning of this second clip and I'm going to just drag it so that it pulls where the audio starts right here. I want that to end up right up against this green line. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to grab and I'm going to pull. And if I haven't, I'm not in trim edit mode, get in trim edit mode. And I'm just going to pull that over. Oop, if it lets me, there we go. And all I'm doing is I'm slightly adjusting these pulls. And as you can see now, I've got it very close. It's right in there. So I'm just going to try to get that next line to start right at that cut. And I'm going to go back through quickly and look at each of these cuts quickly and make sure that they all sound like they're flowing. So I'll just run through them quickly for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. This one, I got to pull. I have the same issue right here. I'm going to pull this in. It's under my head. Hold on a second. Let me get the timeline. All I'm doing here is I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm trying to kill as much dead space before I speak my line. I don't care if there's a little space at the end of my previous line. That allows for a little breathing room. But I want to get that up nice and tight. And I'm going to go through each one and go, let me pull those tight right to the point where they really make sense melodically. One of the key things is, and if I need more time, I can always adjust the previous clip out a little bit, but I'm just going to quickly rifle through. It doesn't take that long. Most of these cuts, I'm just moving to these cuts and going, yeah, I just got to pull it. I got a little space here. There's a little noise. I'm going to pull this one in. I'm going to get that right up to the head. And a lot of times I don't even, you can actually, there's the keyboard shortcuts that jump to the next cuts. I'm doing this so you can see them. I'm just pulling to that. I can actually see, there's things I watch out for. Let me get right in here. Let me see if you can see this. Can you see right there? Can you see what I'm seeing here? There's sort of a little bit of like waveform right here. That's noise. That's like me maybe smacking my lips, making some kind of noise. I want that gone. I want that out. I'm paying attention to the audio. The audio is what's going to drive my video. I want to get to the point where everything should start, right? This next clip should start right where that audio starts. I don't care about the video right now. I will, but for right now, I'm trying to get the audio to be really smooth. So I'm going to pull past that. I'm going to get that right up to that cut point. Let me bring that in a little bit too. And I'm just going to do that quickly. I'm trying to get each of these cuts so that when I get to them, that they're all doing exactly what I need them to do, be pulled really tight, really close. That one's close. We only have a handful of cuts. And you can, like I said, there are keyboard shortcuts. I'm doing the exact same thing here. Look at all that dead space right there. I can even see there's a little bit of white waveform noise right there. I want to get rid of that gurgle. That's all I'm doing. I'm pulling to those new lines, and they can be up really close. If you look how close I have, if you look how close I have this, that's like right on top, and I can always readjust it. But if you listen, you go, did you cut off the beginning of your word? Just take a listen through and see if I did. My manager once reminded me, always hang guitars from the bass up, right? Always. It was a big word. Works fine. You can adjust these clips. And then all I have is that very last one. I can see there's a little bit of space right there. So I'm going to pull that out. This is how I start all of my edits. And then I go back and I just listen. I go like, how is this flow? Take a listen and let's hear if there's any places where I ran into a line too quickly and didn't leave enough space. Or should I have actually tightened up the space on the cuts? Listen through. How to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop a guitar. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that one string. These are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. One thing I learned while I was studying down in Pensacola is never put two guitars on one hook. And as my girlfriend and channel manager once reminded me, always hang guitars from the bass up. And what I try to remind everyone is, you can never have too many guitars. Okay, the only thing I heard was the very end. I kind of felt like it should have lasted a little longer, right? It felt like it ended too soon. So the only one I heard, did you guys hear anything? I'm just gonna pull that last one out a little bit because I think it needs to last a little longer at the very end right here. I'm just gonna stretch, hold on, let me get my screen over here. I am just gonna take the very end of this right there. I'm gonna just grab this end point and I'm gonna drag it out to let it last a little longer. I thought the video ended too quick. This video all about how to hang guitars. So I'm gonna drag it out, right? And just go, okay, does that end seem like it's long enough? What I try to remind everyone is, you can never have too many guitars. All right, it's somewhere in there. So now I've got my audio pretty much in check. Does this make sense? I am just, no cut. I see TXL Nomad says cuts are too tight. Not for my style, they're not at all. Matter of fact, I have 500,000 subscribers on, we're about to hit 500,000 on YouTube, and I drive over 3 million views every single month on the channel. So don't let anyone tell you how to edit your content. Let your audience tell you if it's working or not, if they're enjoying the content. The way I make content is I don't waste people's time. They don't want to hear about my cats. They don't want to sit there and wait while I'm breathing or having a drink of coffee. It's one thing when we're here and we're doing live streams, but in general, give them the stuff. Get to the goods. The most valuable asset a viewer has to give you is their time. And when you ask of their time, you absolutely need to treat it like a precious gift that they've given you and do not waste it. Get right to the thing. So that's my personal approach. There are people who are out there who make videos that are kind of like this live stream. They just talk and they just get off topic or they lose focus. For me, I want to get right to the goods. I want to give you what you asked for and I want to get out of your way so you can get right back to editing and apply whatever you've learned. Yeah. Doug says fast-paced cuts for shorts for sure. Yeah. Especially when we're creating shorts, move quickly. The longer form ones, I'll let them breathe a little bit more. I'll slow them down. I definitely think in general, I tend to leave a little more breath in my long form videos, but not much. I literally cut out breaths. If I hear myself breathing, I'll pull those right out because it's just like, no one needs to hear me sitting there going like, in between lines. I'll go, get it out of there. We don't need that. That's just a waste. I made someone sit and listen to me breathe when I could have been showing them something in DaVinci Resolve. So that's the very beginning that I'm looking at. All right, let's get back to this edit really quickly. This is the edit. Now, at this point, I will take a look at how the visual looks, how the video is cut to cut. All right, let me take a quick second to look at some of the questions from the chat and what's going on. I mean, I'd love to hear about your cat, says how we got your genealogy, but I think you would more manly if you had a dog. All right, listen, I used to have a dog. I used to have many dogs, but after the last one died, we have a small house. Megan is a cat lover. We now have 2 cats, and I love them very much. So we need more. No, we don't. We have plenty. We need. Megan and I have a deal. If it's like for every new vintage car I buy, she gets a new cat. So that's why you haven't seen me buying any new vintage cars lately. I don't have any more room in my life for more cats. After you finish this segment, can you show how you add B-roll, say, for example, a clip of your guitars? Sure, we can absolutely do that. And cut to a completely different clip, e.g. an outside clip or a game trailer. Sure, we can absolutely do that. That's one of the things I want to talk to you about first, because when we start talking about standard cuts, L cuts, J cuts, that was something where a lot of you said, we're not sure we understand what an L cut and a J cut is. A standard cut is when we just have video and audio, and we have those two connected and we cut right between them. So when we drop in a cut, we're going to have all these little segments of perfectly cut video and audio that are all the same length. There's not, the audio never goes longer than the video and the video never goes longer than the audio. That is what we call a standard cut. Boom, cut, next piece. And that's what we're looking at here when we're looking at this project, is all these little standard cuts that are absolutely dead center, right? They're boom. They cut everything equally. Now, there is a thing called an L cut, which is basically, think about what we're looking at here. Think about this video clip. There's the top, right? And it's almost like a giant rectangle. If you drew a line all the way around it and made it like a shape, you'd go, oh, I see what that is. It looks like I'll color it in a bit with my bad coloring. It's a giant rectangle, right? But if I were to grab the audio section, if I were to grab this section and just drag the audio over, and I'll do it right here really quickly so we can see what we're talking about. So let me do this. I'm going to lock the video track so that even though everything's linked, any motion I make now, it won't move any of the video. It'll only move the audio. So I'm going to lock that track. I'm going to switch back to selection mode, the pointer. And now I'm going to grab right down here, this here, and I'm going to pull that way, just the audio track. And even though it's linked, what'll happen is you'll see I've now moved that over. Now, let me do it a little bit more so it's over-exaggerated and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to over-exaggerate this. Okay. So now, zoom in correctly. So now this video is linked to this audio clip, but because I have dragged the audio track longer than the video track, what it has done is created, let's draw around it, an L. Can you see the L shape? This now looks like an L. It looks like L. And that's what we call it, an L cut. I mean, and most people, when we're thinking about video and audio, we always think as the video is on top, the audio is underneath. And the audio is extending past the video. If we were to do the opposite, if we were going to do the exact opposite of this and actually have the audio end before the video clip, let me see if I can show you. Now, you would think, well, does that mean like this is an F cut? Because it kind of does look like a P? I don't know. That's not the one you look at. They only look at the other side of it now. And the side we're looking at is actually this side. And it's this shape here. See how this goes that way? So this is now a J shape. It's actually shaped like a J. It goes down and over. So a J cut is when your audio starts before the video clip starts, and a L cut is when your audio extends past when the video clip ends. Now you might be asking yourself, why the heck would I do that? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, why would I do that? That's like silly. But the reality is, got to say quick thanks to David Jones for the $4.99 super chat. This is Edit Gold. I really appreciate that, my friend. Thank you very much. But I do want to talk about this here. When you make these cuts, the reason you might make these cuts are different than you think. Now, I had all these cuts perfect. I can put that audio right back to where it was and have it line back up. So now this cut, hold on, let me get my screen over here. So now this cut is right back to dead square. You don't always have to move the audio. You might be moving the video. Where most of my J cuts and L cuts happen is I get the audio exactly where I want it. I get the flow. It sounds like it's moving nicely. I like the pacing. It moves right through it. I might make some tweaks along the way. There are times you'll find that I'll use a crossfade, or if I hear a little bit of noise or background something, I might grab the corner handle on one of these, and I might actually, let me see if I can get that. And I might actually grab it, drag it over to have it kind of silence down a little bit at the end, or silence at the beginning, just so I get a nice crossfade between the two where there's not background noise. But more often than not, what happens in my edits is I now look at the video and I go, okay, let me mute this. I'm looking at what my face is doing. I'm talking, and now I get to the cut. Here's where I go. This is where I'm usually making adjustments. At this cut point, I now pay attention to my video. And I went from me kind of pointing to a very fast cut where I'm looking like I'm blowing kisses. I don't know what that face is. Thank you very much, how we got here, Genealogy. I appreciate the Canadian $10 super chat. That's representing Canada, our friendly neighbors to the north, depending on who you ask. We love you guys. I don't know. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Much appreciated. But what I'm looking at here is a lot of times what I'll do is I'll now lock the audio track. Once I have that audio where I want it, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to hit lock on the audio track. So that is locked in place. It's not going to move. And I'll just lock that track and go, it's there. I won't make an accidental cut. I've got everything locked in place. You can see it got darker green. You can see that the lock turns white. My audio is where I want it. I dig it. I like everything that's going on there. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to start paying attention to these other cuts up in the video. What you can do is I'll look at the transition point. I'm going to turn off, if you guys don't know, this is a magnet here, and that's always going to snap the footage a bit. I'm going to turn that off because I want to be able to go frame by frame and pull these cuts one frame at a time. I'm just left clicking and holding right on that video cut point. And even though everything's linked, can you see I'm just moving the video cut point back and forth? And what I'm looking for is there a better place to kind of, if I go 2 frames forward, 2 frames, right? This is where the cut was. Right here, if I go 2 frames forward, I'm noticing that I have my finger out. I'm pointing again. That might make more sense to cut from the previous one where I was pointing to the next frame where I might actually have my hand in frame. So what I'll often do is I'll go, why don't I do this? Why don't I grab this top piece and I'm going to pull that cut to the right and see if I can get closer to, I think it's like 2 frames over. Remember, if you're filming at even 30 frames a second, 2 frames is not very long. It's a microsecond. So I'm pulling from, let's see, the previous one. Now look at the cut point. I just want you to look at the screen. Look at my preview window. I went from finger pointing at you to hand just a little bit lower. That to that. As opposed to where the cut was, it was me pointing at you to suddenly I'm making a kissy face. So I think I go, why don't I pull that cut 2 frames forward so that I'm still actually kind of hand up in screen, and that's going to flow better. But when I did that, you'll notice that basically turned this into a J cut, right? Because it went down and over that way because the audio now starts before the video portion. And that might mess with your brain. You might go, wait, you're not allowed to do that. But we're talking fractions of a second. At 30 frames per second, and I just took out 2, you're not going to notice that 2 frames in a course of a second were now moved over so that I could get the video flow to make sense because my positioning on screen looked better if I moved either forward or backward with the cut point of the video. And I'll literally just watch it and go, well, how does that cut? How does that look? When I say that line, let me just quickly look at it. Let me turn on the audio so you can hear it. If I turn on the audio, how to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, watch that. Let's watch that again. You know I say for noobs, and it's a completely different cut. That's now a J cut. Let's go full screen. Take a listen. Watch what you're seeing. And this is a very typical J cut. It's just smooth. It just starts the next line. It doesn't look too janky. It's a typical YouTube cut, which are kind of jumpy to begin with. But watch what you're seeing here. You ready? How to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always nice and simple. See, that was an example of a J cut. And I'll just go through all of my video cuts now, and I'll do the exact same thing. I'm going to pay attention to just, what was my body positioning? Was it close? Does it make sense to move the video cut a little forward or a little back a few frames to make, which essentially is going to make an L cut or a J cut, but I'm just getting that to move. I'm just trying to get those independent scenes. So I'll usually just kind of jump frame to frame and do the exact same thing. Here was my face position there. Here was my face position at the next cut. Apparently I make a lot of kissy faces. Is that a good place? I could pull that back one. Let me see. It just depends on how I'm looking at. Kissy faces are great. Does it work? Does it not work? Is there a better place to do that? If I pull it a frame back, guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things is, you see how quickly these are moving? Oh, I'm not even showing you. I'm just looking at where this might change. Here's just a cut. I'm just looking at the next cut, and does that make sense to pull it forward or backward a little bit? And if it does, that's what I'll do. But I'll do that for each of them. Always hung melodically. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop. And I'm just going to go quickly through, and I'm going to look at each one and go, does this make sense? Does this make sense for what I'm doing right here? Do I like the face? I'm looking here. I'm going, let's see. I've got kind of a shocked expression. The next frame starts. That's not too different. I'm looking right here. Let me mute this for 1 second. I'm looking at my facial expression right here. And then when I move it forward to the cut of the next scene, that's realistic. It looks like I can let that flow, That seems all right. So I'll just keep jumping to each cut quickly and go, all right, how does that look? Does that look all right? That one might be a little janky. I'm looking really quickly. Not too bad. Everything starts with a kissy face with me, huh? I guess that's what it is. Wait, I gotta lock the audio track. I'm gonna pull the video back just a bit. And I'm gonna try to find a better point of jump. Not too bad. That's a little smoother. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just slightly tweaking. But every time I make one of these tweaks, as you can see, I pulled this video frame back a couple of frames, right? 1 frame, 2 frames, 2 frames back. And that turned this into an L cut. Now, there's different reasons you might do an L cut or a J cut. Sometimes, like we were talking about, one of the people in the chat asked, like, what about adding B-roll? Yeah, I'll just add B-roll. Once I've got my audio flowing, I'll add the B-roll on a track above it. I'll just bring it in and go, this is where I want it to start. Should that B-roll come in as, should it come in as a fade in or a straight cut to that portion? But once I get my audio done and my audio flows well, everything else I edit completely around my audio. So that's all I'm paying attention to now. I'm going to get these cuts with my face just dialed in so I can quickly say, yeah, that looks good. I like that. Let me just check these other ones real quick. Finger up to hands out. Let me see if I can pull that back a bit. Finger up. Yeah, I don't know if that one's going to get much better. Sometimes there's not better ones, but you go with what you got. Maybe I pulled my finger down at the end of this clip. Let me see. No, kind of close though. So some of these you won't always have the greatest cuts. That's one of those things. If I'm better on camera, I'll think about how I left myself before I said the next line. I'm looking at these cuts. That's all pretty good. I just got my hand moving. I might actually pull that in just a touch. Let me unlock. I might want to slide this whole thing in. I'm talking a little long right there. Let me bring that in too. Whoops. I've got the magnet off. I'm going to pull it in just a touch. Listen to that cut. Listen to that cut. Reminded me. Always hang guitars from. That's the only thing I heard right there. I'm listening to. This is another one where I'll pay attention to stuff. I'm noticing the level of when I said always right there. Can you see the size of the audio wave? It was strong. I don't have any compression or anything on. It's just always. And when I say that always really hard, what I probably want to do is soften the beginning of that word. So I'm actually going to grab this corner key. Let me see if I can show you. I'm going to grab that corner key and I'm going to fade into the always. So it's not always with a hard punch. The A will be softer when it comes in just by slightly using that corner key to fade into that particular line. So watch, just by pulling that corner key, it'll be a little bit smoother coming in. Channel manager once reminded me, always hang guitar. Yeah, a little too much that time. Listen, once reminded me, always hang guitars from the bass up. It just softened the hit on that A, just a tiny bit. I'll check this. What I try to remind everything else looks pretty good. You can never have too many. And what I try to remind everyone is you can never have too many guitars. So that's really it. And now the only things I'll start thinking about here is I will think about, are there any spots where I might want to zoom in for a little bit of emphasis? That last line where I said, you can never have too many guitars, I'd be like, let's add a zoom. What I try to remind everyone is, I'm thinking right here, let's zoom that thing in so that it really puts emphasis on you can never have too many guitars. Let's get closer to Daniel. So what I'll probably do right there is right before that line, I'll just add a keyframe in the upper right. I'm on the inspector transform. I'm just going to add a keyframe right there. And then I'm going to move the playhead forward. Did it add? Yep. And I'm going to go maybe a little bit into the line and I'm just going to zoom in slightly on my face. So I now have, let me open up the keyframe tray. I now have 2 keyframes here, if you can see them. Let me move everything up just a tiny bit. All I did was at this point, I added keyframes and everything else was the same. And when it gets to this point, you can see that other batch of keyframes. It's going to zoom in. All I'm going to do is I just want that little extra emphasis so that it zooms in on my face, right? What I try to remind everyone is you can never have too many guitars. You see that slight push in? Let me just show you again what I did right there, full screen. And what I try to remind everyone is you can never have too many guitars. Nice, simple, easy. It was just a very simple cut. We just cut everything nice, a couple of J and L cuts just to get things to move smoothly, and then a little push at the end into my face when I was making this one point. You can never have too many guitars. It's almost like leaning into the camera, having that zoom where just zoom in slightly. And that's something that's real simple kind of editing stuff that I do all the time. That is a basic cut. That is how I would put this together. I might go so far as to say, all right, why don't we, we could ease these keyframes a bit if we wanted to. I think you guys, I've showed you how to do this. open up that spline. I've got 2 keyframes there. I can box select them, and I can ease them both in and out by clicking right there. We've talked about this in videos. So now there is 2 handles on that. It's just got a slight ease. So the zoom in is a little bit smoother. But now from the beginning, that's the whole, let's go back. I'm going to turn off the keyframe tray. Remember, the keyframe tray is right here now. You can put it right below your timeline. I'm going to shut that off, right? I'm just going to pull this down so we can see everything. I'm going to click this other button right here. That's going to show us the whole project again. That's the timeline zoom, full thing. Go back to the beginning, and let's look at the entire thing we just filmed and edited. That makes absolutely no sense. But let's see if it feels smooth. Let's see if it feels like a smooth audio, smooth transition, YouTube type of edit. How to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop a guitar. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that 1 string. These are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. One thing I learned while I was studying down in Pensacola is never put 2 guitars on 1 hook. And as my girlfriend and channel manager once reminded me, always hang guitars from the bass up. And what I try to remind everyone is, you can never have too many guitars. Simple. Nice and simple, right? There's not much to that. You could sit there and tweak it. I mean, you might feel like some of those cuts, I might go back and go, I could have waited a little longer, push that out. That was one of the questions we got right off of the bat, was like, well, what if you decided one of those was too quick? Let me just do this real quickly. Guitars for noobs. I actually heard a bit of noise at the beginning. Right here, I'm going to make sure I put a little bit of fade right there, because how to hang, I can hear that, I can hear some noise right there. So I'm going to get rid of that. Whoops. I'm going to get rid of that very beginning. I don't love what's happening in here. Let me make sure those are linked. Yeah. And I'm going to let it start right about there, because I think that's more to what I want. How to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things, I think that could have gone a little bit longer. I'm going to add a little, that one spot right here where I made this L cut, it jumped into the next line for my liking. I might push that out a hair. I might just, all I'm doing is left clicking. I'm in trim edit mode like we've been editing in, that allows me to grab this end and push, and it'll extend this clip and it'll push everything else after it. That's the beauty of trim edit mode. If you watch everything after it, it's pushing the entire project out after it. It's not, I'm sitting on that one cut, but it's allowing me to push everything in the entire project afterwards. So I can add a little bit of breathing room, and everything after it gets pushed out of the way. That's why I love trim edit mode. It just makes it nice and simple melodically. One of the key things is, and that's it. That's where I'm going to start. The other question we had was, what if you wanted to add some B-roll? Well, for me, what I would do is I would find a B-roll clip. Let me give me a quick second here. Let's go over to one of our sponsors, who's not our sponsor today, but we love them. We're going to go to Storyblocks. So I'm going to go to Storyblocks. I'm going to look for videos. Let's see if we can find videos of guitars hanging on a wall. And I'll see if I can find a piece of B-roll that we can incorporate in how we would do that. Let me see. Which one of these looks like something that feels like guitars hanging on a wall? The straps, wow, so many videos they have in here. I like this one here. This one's kind of cool. Let's do that one. So I'm going to quickly just download this B-roll section. Cool. And I'll bring that into our project. All right. So there's our B-roll section. Let me find it here, and I'm going to bring it over into our project. So now we have this B-roll. So the next question is, what if you wanted to add B-roll? If I've got your audio kind of trimmed so that the flow is right. We've got that flow all worked out. We've got the video of me talking, so that's underneath. I start adding my B-roll. I never try to remove the parts of me talking. I don't think about everything has to be in one track. That's the great thing about non-linear editing and having multi-track editing. I can just put my B-roll right on top of me, and it can exist without me having to change my cuts about what when I was on screen. Those can exist on their own track, and I can decide once those are set, they're done. They look good. I've got them tweaked in there. Now I'm just going to go down into my software here, right into the tracks area. And if you right click anywhere in the gray area of your track, I clicked in the video portion and say add track or add tracks. I can just add another track. So I'll just go right click, add a track. And now I've got another video track right on top of my main video track. So there's one, I don't know if you can see it. So now I've added this second video track. I've opened up an extra track, and now I can decide where I might want to add my B-roll. for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things is never, where am I? One of the key things is want to drop them. Do we have something starting to die on us? Sometimes we have an issue. I'm going to go here. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop a guitar. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you, okay. So maybe I want to put that here. Maybe I say right here, I want to add in some B-roll. I want it to go right on the spot where I start. One of the key things is you don't, maybe I say one of the key things is, maybe that's it. Maybe never put, these are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola. One thing I learned while I was studying down in Pensacola is never put, that's where I want it. Never put, while I was studying down in Pensacola is, and I'll just find that audio line. That's all I'm doing is looking at the audio. Where did I say the line? Right here I said is never put two guitars on one hook. And so that's a good place for B-roll, right? So I'm just gonna line my B-roll up with never put two guitars on one hook, and then I'm gonna pull it back. I only need it that length. Cola is never put, and I might decide, do I want that to fade in? I can put a little corner key fade just by grabbing that corner key and have a quick fade of my B-roll. All simple stuff, right? Cola is never put two guitars on one hook. And as my girlfriend in Chan, so all I did was I just grabbed that B-roll track. I found a place where I thought it would make sense. Never put two guitars on one hook. That seems to work, right? Studying down in Pensacola is never, and I laid it right into a track on top of my self-talking. I didn't touch my own footage. I found a place to put it right on top in a new track. And then I just adjusted that corner key as you saw me do. I grabbed this corner key right here, which was originally up in the corner, and I dragged it to the right. Those corner keys on video are going to do like a dissolve. On audio, they're going to do a fade up or down. And on video, they're going to do a dissolve in or out. If you pull the corner key at the end of this, it would fade out of that and then expose the track of me underneath. That's why I like building that whole track of me talking first, because any B-roll I add, I've always got my track of me talking underneath that I can fade in the B-roll or fade out the B-roll. And I always know that I'm already underneath it talking. It'll be a nice smooth transition. I don't have to overthink it. I don't have to force everything into one track. And then when I'm all done, we should have a short project that has some B-roll in here. Let's see what we look like. Let me see what's going on here. How to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things is you don't want to drop them. Never drop a guitar. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that one string. These are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. One thing I learned while I was studying down in Pensacola is never put two guitars on one hook. And as my girlfriend and channel manager once reminded me, always hang guitars from the bass up. And what I try to remind everyone is, you can never have too many guitars. Simple edit. How did that look? How do we do there? I mean, that kind of makes sense. Very easy. I saw that Vuanolo said smooth cut transitions, never use them. It's a great question. I never use smooth cut transitions. They are designed in DaVinci Resolve to sort of make it feel like your frames are merging together, but they leave too many artifacts. I can show you one. Let me do you really quickly. There is up in the transitions, the video transitions. Let me show you what I'm looking at. Let me go right to the very beginning of this project. And some people think they're supposed to use them, right? Like it says smooth cut, put them in. If you go up and you turn on the toolbox, you'll see this whole section here. There's a smooth cut under the video transitions. And I'm going to grab smooth cut and I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to put it between these two here. I'm just going to pick a cut. I'm going to drop it right in between. Now I'll shrink it down. I'm going to let you see it right off the bat. Tell me what you see. Oops, sorry. I don't have it over here. I was so busy not showing you the screen. Smooth cut is right up here in your toolbox under video transitions. You just find it, drag it down, and I just dropped it right in between a cut right there. That's where it is. Now I want you to see, look at what happens to the video when you add a smooth cut. I'm not going to change the length of the smooth cut yet, but it's one of those transitions that people have been convinced they should add in between all their cuts because it'll make it smoother. You tell me what you see now when I go full screen. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. Did you see that? Did you see how that started to scrub? That smooth cut is, look at my face right now. I've got like extra beards. Like it's sort of blending. It looks funky. I'm like, what's happening right there? Like what's going on with my beard right there? That's the supposed smooth cut. It's blending those two cuts together, I don't love it. Even when I shrink it way down, if I go, okay, let's do this. Let's take that smooth cut and I'm going to grab it and I'm going to shrink it just by left clicking and holding on the end of it. You can pull left or right and I'm going to make it go faster. Let me go a short smooth cut. Let me see what it looks like. Guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things, I still saw it do weird things with my mouth right there. See what's happening? That's a short smooth cut. And I'm seeing half of a smile going up this way with my new lips being pursed down here. I love DaVinci Resolve, and there are some times when smooth cut works, does not work for me at all. I won't use them. I think they're a waste of time for the types of edits that I do. I'd much rather just see the straight cut. Here's no smooth cut. Always hung melodically. One of the key things is that works fine for me. That's exactly how I'm going to cut. So I avoid them. If they work for you, if you're someone, I think the only time that they work, and this is, I don't want to beat up DaVinci Resolve because I love them. I think they work if the frame you're coming from is very similar to the frame you're cutting into in the next cut. But if it's already similar, which is what we were doing when we were adjusting the J and L to get the video kind of positions to go like, well, you had your hand up in that last one. Can we find something that's similar in the next beginning of the next video clip? If they're already similar, you won't notice it anyway. So I think they work well when the frames are very similar, but I don't think that they do what I want them to do. So I think just rather have it cut right into the next piece. People who are used to watching YouTube videos are kind of used to seeing these fast cuts. So I would do them that way. I would leave it straight if it makes sense, but make sure you take the time to ask questions. Don't just put a smooth cut in because someone told you on the internet you can use smooth cuts and it'll make you cut smoother. Look at it. Look at your video. Put it in there. Just zoom in close and go, can I see artifacts? Does that look like my mouth? Does it look like I have two mouths there? That's what makes the way that I decide what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do is what my eyes see. If I see something I don't like, I'm going to change it. I don't care if someone on the internet told me that that's the coolest thing you should do between all your cuts. I'm not going to do it. So always use your own judgment as sort of a sense of what is right and what's wrong. And when you're done, you should have a nice smooth edit that has a decent pace to it. Now, different people have different paces. There are some people out there that talk at a slower pace. I'm from New England. I talk kind of fast. I move pretty quickly. And when I have longer pauses and I take breaths, you can feel it because it feels like he just stopped talking. So if I'm talking and I just stop, you feel it. You're like, what was that about, Daniel? Also, you forget where you were? You forget your spot on the script today? So I like him to keep moving. So I like to play it. I like to work in there and try to get them the best I can be. And I agree with Vicus. I hope I said your name. Vicus. Go frame by frame if need be. I will. I get all the rough cuts done quickly, move through them, and then I quickly review. I kind of make sure that while I'm editing the cuts, they're pretty close so that the thing should be pretty decent when I play through. And then I play through again, listening to the audio. Audio first. Get the audio smooth, make the pacing and the flow right. I'll take entire sections and move them. One last thing I want to show you here, like there's times that I will go, hey, I didn't like this section where it was. Like what sections do we have? In guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. One of the key things, these are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. One thing I learned while I was, maybe I don't like that positioning. I might decide, you know what? I think, even though I spoke this line in order, I would rather have this one go over here. I'd rather change the order. I do this all the time. I will film something and then I'll listen back and go, you know what? I started talking about something, 6 minutes into a video that I should have brought up 3 minutes into a video. And I'll grab that whole section and go, I don't care if when I filmed it, it happened later. I think the flow is better if it happens earlier. Now, this isn't a great example, but if I felt that way about this, about this piece, then all I would do is I would move that piece. I would just grab that. I'd right click on it and I just choose copy, which is Control C. I put my playhead back over here. I'm going to move this. I'm going to have to make sure the cut is straight because with J and L cuts, you have to be careful. And now I'm just going to do basically Control V. I'm going to paste it in earlier and go, I think that belonged here. I think it made more sense there. Does it? I don't know. Melodically. These are all lessons that I learned from. These are all lessons. Yeah. Now I can get rid of the other one. And I just changed the order of it. So does that, I just took something I said later on and I made it happen earlier. Let's see what that looks like. How to hang guitars for noobs. When it comes to hanging guitars, I make sure that my guitars are always hung melodically. These are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. Unless you're doing a drop D tuning, then you can drop that one string. One thing, now, I don't know that flow was better, probably not, but you just see, don't be afraid to take something and completely move it to a different section if the flow makes sense. A lot of it is when you are filming, don't be afraid to, like if you're someone who is speaking into a camera, you may be, you may not be, depends on your type of edits. You know, don't be afraid to be really intentional about how you start your lines and how you finish your lines that really give you a start and an end point. Because if you do that, it'll give you a better ability to cut when you actually get everything into the edit. If you noticed how I said all these lines, it gave me all the ability. In between every line, I said something, right? We were goofing around. I was like, okay, that's that line. But then when I removed all those spaces out in between, we get a fluid, right? We get a fluid motion of things. So I'm always listening. Does the audio make sense? And if the audio, like, I don't like the way I just moved that. So I'm like, nah, I'll put it back. I think it makes sense where it was. The audio is smoother. And that's what I'm going for. If you get your audio right, everything else you can start layering on top. And I might get to the point where I say, okay, in this video, I want to add text. Like I made up the, what was it? These are all lessons that I learned from Pensacola, the nation's capital. Right. So maybe at the point of Pensacola, I might want to do like a lower third where I'm like, hey, I need to have like Pensacola University or something like that come in. And that's where I might decide to find like some text and go, oh, I want to have, you know, whatever, a piece of text come in right there and go, you know, and change that to whatever it is. I don't even know how to spell Pensacola. Anyone? I don't even know. I'm going to call, well, good old PU. We all studied at PU, right? And I might go, oh, I want PU to happen there. So I'll go like, yeah, that's where I want it to happen. I'm going to stick a little PU down the bottom. That's my on-screen PU right there. That's my text. We're adding PU. Everybody, I got a graduate from PU string. These are all lessons that I learned from and then maybe I'll have that like Pensacola, the nation's. And that's when you can start playing around and go, oh, you know, let's do a little keyframing. Let's have that start off screen to the left and have it, you know, come in. The nation's. Put a little keyframing, get that in there like that, right? So now PU comes into the screen. Pensacola, the nation's capital of guitar hanging. So any of those things you can do. But if all of the base is right, looks Pensacola State University. See, you guys know how to spell it. Kevin's got it. But it's just a matter of you get that base, that foundation right, then you're all set. You can build, you can layer text on top. But get that. Really think about your audio. I think more people try to cut video first and they ignore the audio. I personally think a really well-cut audio should almost be able to close your eyes and just hear the story, kind of like a movie playing or a book being read to you. And it should flow and have pacing and take you to the next thing and the next thing. And if that flow is correct in the audio, then you can go back in and tweak your video on top and then start layering anything else you want on top of that. Now, typically from here, what I would do is I would start editing the audio. Like I've got it kind of put together, but I don't know if I like, you know, the compression or the EQ, or get the audio to sound as good as it can sound on YouTube or wherever I'm putting it up to. For me, it's YouTube. So for me, that would be the next step. But we're running a little long today. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go live again same time tomorrow, all right? And what I'm going to do is leave this project going. Let's jump into this tomorrow. I'm going to leave this. I'll save this project, and we'll look at the audio, and we're going to do some audio processing, because a lot of the questions I get asked is, how do you get your mic to sound good? Like, what are you using for a mic? What are you using for preamps? But then when you bring it into DaVinci Resolve, how do you make sure it sounds good so that it's processed the right EQ, the right compression, the right limiting, the right levels? How do you get that part right? And I want to spend a little time doing that, but we're running a little long today. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for all the good suggestions on the guitar video. It's a great script. And we will pick this back up tomorrow. Sound good? I'll see all you guys tomorrow. Peace. Enjoy your weekend.